When our time is up, when our lives are done, will we say we've had our fun? Will we make a mark this time? Will we always say we tried? Standing on the rooftops, everybody scream your heart out. This is the Community Solutions Podcast, and we're back. Andrew Richter, Jason Bradley.
I'm a year older.
Yeah,
not a year wiser, but a year older. Now, are you ever gonna do Sinatra or something on there?
Sinatra,
yeah,
I suppose I could.
There used to be a ballpark. I mean, you know, I don't know.
Wow, got me on that one.
That's a Frank Sinatra song about the Dodgers leaving.
Oh boy, leave it to you to know that one.
I know them all.
You know all the Sinatra. Huh?
Absolutely. I could belt out New York, New York anytime.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll have to take you up on that sometime and see. No, that's a band called Lost Prophets. But that was not Sinatra.
Lost Prophets. Okay.
So
what a thing to name a band. I'll tell you, we're running out of ideas to name bands. I'll tell you what.
Yeah?
Aren't we?
Well, yeah, it gets tougher and tougher, you know. And
everything gets trademarked.
Yeah. You get to a point where I think you're left with like misspelling words, and
I'm struck by something Gene Simmons said one time.
Yeah,
he said you have to get a band name down to where it's so simple it can't be any simpler. Right. You know, Kiss is as simple as it gets, but yes. I mean, it's like you don't want to overdo it. The right. Simpler, the more straightforward it is, the more I think it'll be, it will have impact. So that's some advice from a guy very successful in the music business.
Absolutely. Although you think about a band like Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they've done pretty well as well.
That's true. So, they couldn't be the Chili Peppers; they had to be the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, right. I don't know. I suppose there is, but you think I don't know. It's band names, they become so iconic, right? It's just like, where did that come from? I mean, where's the Beatles? Where was that? Who came up with that idea? Where did it come from? They misspelled it. Yeah. I assume on purpose.
Yes.
But,
yes, on purpose, yeah.
So, things like that. In Excess is always one that right. I always liked from the 80s with, IXNS.
Yes.
So that's, but, who came up with that? Who came up with it?
Yeah. It's an art naming anything, whether it's a business or a band.
And it's an art naming a song. It's an art being able to create the music behind it. It's an art being able to come up with the lyrics. It's a talent that very exclusive. I mean, if anybody could do it, then everybody would be a singer and a songwriter. So,
that's true.
Yeah. So we know that everybody can't do it, which is fine. I mean, we're not all the same.
No, that's good. You need creative people, you need analytical people, and if everybody
then
was
you need me.
Well, where do you fall? If you're not analytical, you're not. Yes,
I'm certainly
where
not
do
creative.
You fall? Yes, yes, I fall.
I'm definitely on the analytical side. Yeah. I have no right side to my brain at all.
I'm pretty firmly rooted with one foot, I think, in each.
You are maybe more than anybody I know.
Really?
Because you've got the creative musical side to you, and then you've got the data analysis kind of side to you. I totally don't have the former. So you have definitely one foot on each side, which is unusual.
That is unusual, but
sometimes it's good to be abnormal. Remember that.
Oh, I'm happy about it. I take pride in being different. It's okay by me.
Gotta embrace it.
Yep, that's right. Let your freak flag fly. That's my motto.
Oh, it is? I never heard you say that before.
Maybe I haven't. I just now made that my motto.
Oh, okay. So. Starting today.
It's a new year, and I can do that. So
the year's still young. You got plenty of mottos to come.
That's true. I might change it by next week. Next week it might be "Don't play leapfrog with unicorns" or something like that. I don't know.
Ooh. So no naked twister.
I'm telling you, It's that time of year. I think it's the cabin fever that's getting to me. It tends to make you a bit squirrely.
Yeah, hope I'm not sitting next to Jack Nicholson here. No cabin fever like that?
Nothing like that, no. No, I think...
No bartender named Lloyd over there? Yeah, no, okay.
No, I think, though, that, you get into these months and you just, January drags on and February drags on. But we had such a brutal December. It's like, man, winter's really, 3 more months.
Well, here's the thing for me. Yeah. Once Christmas hits, once my birthday hit, January 10th, I'm still kind of in the winter mood until I start, pitchers and catchers start to report.
Yeah.
And the college basketball tournament starts, and you have that first 55-degree day. Then I want winter gone in 24 hours.
Right.
It's kind of the thing where you just embrace. I like to ice. I don't do it as much as I used to. I don't do anything as much as I used to, it seems like. But, winter's just a way of life in this part of the country. So it's, I definitely get the cabin fever around mid to late February. I'm not quite as bad as you, maybe.
No. I'm like the first snowfall. I'm like, I've had it.
So you had it 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I like the fall a lot, though, too, so I'm torn,
Yeah.
The fall's a nice time of year.
Yeah. Until it starts to dip into highs of the 40s and stuff like that. I mean, that just gets to be too cold. But I don't mind the 50s and 60s. I mean,
when there's a nip
would
in the air, football weather.
Hot, but yeah. Football weather, I mean, the worst day of winter is the first day after the Vikings' last game. So that's usually the way it works. This year, it's going a little bit longer than normal. So
we'll see
about that. It already has.
That's true. I mean,
at the time of the recording here, anyways, it will.
Just remember one thing. Okay, when I was in college, and they missed that field goal. When they took the knee and all that, 98.
Yeah.
I was a true believer. I thought for sure I was going to see a Super Bowl, and I still think that Viking team against Denver, which ended up being John Elway's last game,
right,
would have been an immaculate Super Bowl. I mean, it could have been an incredible one, and I saw them get blown out 41-0 by the Giants.
Yep.
I saw them blow that game at New Orleans, which they really should have won.
I remember Darren Nelson dropping that pass
against Washington. Same year the Twins won the series in '87. And I just can't get into that team. Whether they go on to win or not, I've watched. I've never seen them win one big game ever, and something tells me I'm going to be disappointed. It's kind of like, like a kid who has a strained relationship with his dad or something.
Right.
Not that I do. I don't. But, you think Dad's really going to take me to the ball game, or, it's kind of like the movie Liar, Liar, where,
right.
Dad's really going to take me to watch wrestling, and something, of course, comes up and they don't do it. It's kind of the same feeling where you get to the point where you expect it's like I'm an old Cubs fan. I expect something out of this world to happen.
Well, and we won't spend too much time on this.
Of course not.
Because there's a chance that they lost just last Sunday against the Saints at home. But
we are recording this a little early. Yeah.
If they didn't, we have this weekend to look forward to with probably Atlanta, because I don't see Philly winning with Wentz out. But which would be nice because that'll be a home game. But think about that. New Orleans, who we lost to in the playoffs, in a title game. Atlanta, who we lost to in a title game. And possibly the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we lost to in a Super Bowl. I mean, that might be our path right there. And think of all the good, the wrongs that could be set right.
Here's the thing. Anybody playing New England is my favorite team.
Yes, that's true as well.
I don't really care. As long as they don't win, I'm fine with it. I'll be the biggest Viking fan in the world if it's the Vikings in New England.
Yeah.
So, whatever. I don't hate them because they're good. That's not why. I won't get into why. There's a whole laundry list, but I'd rather see the Yankees win the next 15 World Series than see New England win one more Super Bowl.
I tend to like underdogs. That's just kind of my thing.
Well, I respect greatness. I don't like mediocrity, but here's the thing. Greatness is one thing. I do like the teams that come from nowhere and win it all.
Right.
You can call them Cinderellas if you want, but I go back to teams I grew up watching: the '88 Dodgers, the '93 Phillies, who lost the World Series, but they lost to a much, much better team. And I think of teams that won who weren't supposed to, and it's like Cinderella; they never go back to the dance.
Right.
They just never do.
Yeah.
But it's those stories that are so compelling in sports. If you make a political analogy, it's like somebody coming from nowhere to win
It's like the Jesse Ventura election.
Right. It could be something of that sort. And so it's what draws you and keeps drawing you back. The '80 Olympic team for the USA. I mean, there's always just something about that you don't see it very often. It just catches your eye, and when it does, you never forget it. I mean, like I've said before, the 1987 Minnesota Twins are the heroes of my youth.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that season. I listened on the radio to every single game because every single game back then wasn't on TV. And we didn't have cable, so it didn't matter. There was something called the Midwest Sports Channel back then, which was FSN's precursor. But that was a team that was a very good team, but not the best team in the postseason. And they played as well as you could ever imagine. And you could never imagine it would go so well.
Right.
And I'll never forget that team. I'll be 115. I'll be dead. But I still won't forget that team, period. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny we're talking about this. I mean, sports and underdogs, teamwork. It kind of leads us into what we're talking today. Talking about Caucus, the Caucus system, the convention system.
Coming up very soon, a couple weeks here.
Absolutely. We want to make sure that we kind of share some of our knowledge and our wisdom that we've gained through going through this, just because I think it's a key to taking things to the next level. And I think it's like the greatest missed opportunity. And we'll get into this probably later, some more sports analogies for those of you that hate sports. I'm sorry. But, that it's hard to identify your best people if you don't go where the bulk of the people are. You made the analogy about the NFL Combine the other day. Yeah.
And why don't you expunge on that a little bit, because it's a great sports analogy, but it's one that really makes sense.
Yeah.
Of where, or maybe we'll get to it later.
Yeah, let's get to that in the flow of things.
Yeah,
but I won't forget that.
But you did have a great analogy when Jason and I did a speech recently about this, where we made some analogies to other things, and sports is a good one. You draft players, you scout players, you recruit them, you do whatever level, and you move them up through the process. Right. And it's the same thing here. Caucus, February 6th. We should mention that.
That is right, yes. And in 2018, that is the case. If you're listening to this next year or the year after because you want to revisit and learn about Caucus, or maybe you're hearing it for the first time, it's not that date, so don't go. But in 2018, it is February 6th.
That's a good point. I mean, people, as we've seen on our sites, go back and listen to old shows a lot.
And this is the internet; it lasts forever. So
everything lasts forever on the internet. So, so Caucus, Jay. Yes. I mean, what is it? Why is it important to go? A lot of people don't understand what you do at a caucus.
Right.
You don't vote and go home. No. That's the misconception out there. So why are we telling people to go to them? Why the hell are we doing that?
Okay. Well, caucus, the term has been around for a long, long, long time. I mean, even in the origins of this country, they have caucused, and it has meant kind of different things. Even going back into England before the United States was the United States. But we have evolved the meaning of caucus where we use it now, basically as a means to do a couple of things. One is to organize at the most basic level, which is the precinct level, our neighbors, the people that live right around us. Every city is broken down into precincts. Some have wards with precincts inside the wards. Mm-hmm. Some are just precincts. Crystal, great example, has 4 wards. Some of those wards have 2 precincts. Some have 3. New Hope has 8 precincts. They have no wards. And if your city votes at large, you do not have wards. You generally have precincts.
But you will still caucus in your precinct whether you have wards or not.
Absolutely. That's the way it works. So
Plymouth, by the way, where I live, I looked this up, they have 25 precincts.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot. Now, there's a couple different Senate districts there.
Right.
Yeah, 45, 44, and 46.
Yes.
So they're not all going to the same place for a caucus, but 46 goes to Hopkins, 45 goes to Cooper High School in New Hope, and 44, which is mine. I'm not actually sure where we go. I have to look it up. Yeah, so...
But to the best of my knowledge, I mean, they don't split precincts up. They use precincts oftentimes as dividing lines.
True. The point being, you have to know your precinct so you go to the right Senate district, so you go to the right place.
Is true, yes.
You don't want to get sent away. And you will. I mean, especially with the straw poll and with things like that, resolutions, running for delegate. You can't run for delegate where you don't live.
Right.
So which we'll get into that. But I mean, just saying to people, Crystal, for example, is all part of the same Senate district, which all caucuses in the same place.
Yes.
But a city like Plymouth doesn't. So you have to look that up. You can do that at the Secretary of State's website when you find your whatever, DFL, Republican. And I would like to spend a little time talking about minority parties, other parties, and how they can, because they don't take advantage of caucus, I don't think either. Where they caucus, you're going to need to know that, and you can look at their websites too.
Yeah, and that's a great point, that caucuses are broken out by groups of it might be a whole Senate district together. Sometimes it's not, but it's broken up by precinct, but it's also by political party. You're not going to have the Republicans and Democrats caucusing together. You're not going to have...
We don't need fistfights to break out.
No, you're not going to have the Constitution Party or any of those in with the Republican Party. Every party caucuses separately, and it's broken up by precincts. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that the purpose of a caucus is to get together and have a straw poll for president. And I say that caucus is every 2 years. We don't vote for president every 2 years, obviously. But if you look at the population of caucuses in a presidential year versus a gubernatorial year, there's a vast difference between attendance.
Huge difference. I have to say, just a short story on that. Yeah. The first caucus I ever attended was when I moved back to Crystal in 2004. And somebody got me to go. And I said, well, why? I went to the Republican one.
Right.
Why? Bush is the nominee. What do I need to go there for? No, I didn't know what we were doing there.
Yeah, I didn't know the first time I went.
And I did not go in 2000. Well, maybe I did go in 2006. But I know it was 2008 before I was a convener. But I didn't know either. I didn't know the process of being a delegate or doing resolutions or anything like that. I didn't know what that entailed. So there is an education in and of itself. And I think, you're right about the presidential year. When we were there in 2016, there were so many people in there. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. They were having a hard time finding places for people to sit.
I think it was about 1,500
yeah.
that came.
And this is a big high school.
Right. I mean, there's 2,000 students who go to this high school.
Yeah.
My old high school. Your kids went there.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, it was, the parking lot was full down to the football field.
Yeah.
So it was a
that
lot
says
of
something.
people.
Yeah. It's usually only football games that fill it up that much.
Sometimes not even that.
Yeah. Well, lately they've had a good team.
That's right. They have had a good team recently.
So yeah, I mean, it's a huge difference in attendance. The gubernatorial years, you don't have as much. I think the people that attend on those years, I don't know if they're just a little more stalwart or what it is. I
think they're more likely to be the movers and shakers. You know, they're more likely to be the activists, the people who are already involved are more likely. You will see new people in a gubernatorial year. It does happen.
Yeah.
Especially depending on the governor candidates will often bring out new people.
That's true as well.
And this year we have 2 Senate races, which are going to do the same. So you might have a bigger one than you normally would have.
Right.
Go back to something like 2010. We had a gubernatorial race and we had no Senate race.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you may see, so you had, if you didn't strongly favor a governor candidate, you may not have bothered.
Right, and that's part of it too, is the organization, the grassroots of these campaigns to be able to get their people out, because and we'll get into this. It's about scoring as many delegates and alternates as you can, and oftentimes ahead of caucuses, they'll try to get their people out.
Well, I've seen that straw poll make or break some people.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, the problem is it doesn't necessarily tell you who the delegates are. But
right.
Anyway, we should get into what you do at a caucus. I mean, there's 3 main functions that we've really seen. Actually, there's probably 4 or 5 if you really wanted to do what you should be doing at a caucus.
Right.
Obviously, there's a straw poll. There are proposed resolutions to the party platform. We should mention that, and I won't say what I think of the party platform because I'd like to, wipe my arse with it. But the resolutions are that you bring, say you want to change something in a party platform. You bring it first to your caucus. They will vote yay or nay and you make your case. Debate can be open for 10 minutes on that particular resolution. So say you want to say, I'll just try to make something up. The Republican Party should stand for legalizing marijuana.
Okay.
I'm not arguing for or against it.
Right. That's just an example.
And so that will be debated. If it passes in your caucus, it then goes to what's called your BPOU convention, which is your local Senate district.
Right.
For me, it's 44. For you, it's 45. Then, from that point on, if the resolution, you'll have a resolutions committee, which will throw that stuff together because you may have similar ones, so on and so forth. That will happen at your convention. That will move on. If they pass, they go on to the CD level, congressional district. Then they go to the state convention. So it's important to know that everything at least on the Republican side, started at a caucus level. It started with somebody bringing a resolution forward they wanted the party to stand for.
Right.
It's turned into, I have my ideas on how to change it.
Yeah.
It's turned into kind of I don't know what you call it, what the party platform's morphed into.
It's crazy. I know if you look at the original platform of the Republican Party back from the 1850s, 1856, I believe it was. I mean, it was a pretty strong set of statements, whereas this is such, we believe, and it was very... It was very, very. I want to say that it wasn't issue-driven. Now it's issue-driven. It's all about the issues.
It was principle-driven, I think is what you mean.
Yeah.
And if I can speculate as to how I'd want to change this and get some hate-filled Twitter things thrown at me, I'm going to speculate. Okay? Can I speculate?
Yes, go ahead.
I would like us to have, and I've heard something similar to this be proposed. We need a standing set of principles that don't change.
Okay.
A standing set of 12 principles,
okay,
that don't change ever. We stand for lower taxes. We stand for the Second Amendment. We stand for pro-life. We stand for, school choice, whatever. And then what we need is a legislative agenda. You following me?
Yeah, legislative agenda, yep.
So in the next 2 years, instead of writing resolutions, we put out like a contract with Minnesota. We put out like, okay, we're going to take our 12 principles, and here's how we're going to put them in action.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we need. The party platform, I hate it. I'm just going to say straight out, I can't stand it. It's contradictory. It's too long. It's laborious. You'd fall asleep reading it. You'd want to find something to poison yourself with. Mm-hmm. It is outlived its usefulness, this process. Now, having said that, it is grassroots in that how it has come about. But the grassroots needs to come back here and fix it.
Okay.
So that's my proposal. So if I were dictator of the party for a day, first, this is one of the things I would do. Not the first thing. It wouldn't be the first thing.
Right.
It'd be like the fifth thing. is to get rid of the platform and replace it with a set of principles with a legislative agenda behind it.
Okay.
So how does that sound?
I like that. I mean, way back when, I had actually put some resolutions in to get rid of the platform as it stood and to make it into two different things.
That happens at almost every convention.
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting voted down.
Yeah, and I don't know why that was.
I think
it doesn't make it past the rules committee a lot of times, which is, or the not the rules committee, but the resolutions committee. And
resolutions committee, though, is stacked with.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but whoever the party wants to put on it. Yeah. Ultimately, I mean, it's not like we elect anybody to serve on that.
Yeah,
it's they're in control of it, and I'm not saying that's good or bad, right or wrong. I guess I am. But, to me, the resolutions committee is not there to pick and choose things.
No.
They're there to simplify things. They're there to...
cut out the duplicative...
That's what we've always used it for. We've never said, okay, we're not going to take this up.
Yeah.
If it passed a CD, if it, passed a... It's supposed to be debated.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
why I don't do party stuff anymore.
Yeah,
I don't do it anymore. I'm retired from my. You and I are gonna be at the convention this year as journalists,
right?
Okay, so I'll be there. Where the action is. That's where Jason and I are.
Yeah,
but no longer am I going to sit around with State Central and all that crap and do this stuff. So, they want to have this long platform that takes a month to read. Nothing I can do. But as it relates to caucus, the system we have is the system we have.
Right.
So if you have something you want to change or add or eliminate, whatever, caucus is the time to come and propose it. And
yes, it is.
And it's both sides. And I'm sure the Libertarians and the Greens have a platform too. I'm not 100% sure what their process is, but caucus is the place to get that ball rolling.
Right, it is. And so you've got that. You've got the all the neighbors in one precinct getting together, that all the neighbors that show up anyways and want to participate. And then you go into electing officers of people to lead that precinct. A precinct captain sometimes is elected. Sometimes that's hard to find. That's someone who's kind of like the go-to person in your neighborhood for all things political.
We should mention there is a caucus convener who is running the meeting in your precinct.
Right.
I've done that a million times. They're kind of the ones keeping things going and the meeting moving. And,
right.
That kind of thing. Yeah, precinct captain is one of those things that all sounds great. I found those roles have kind of fell by the wayside. There's the precinct captains that take the initiative and seek out something to do. The precinct captains that are there because somebody has to be there.
Right. And there's a lot of those. And there's a lot of precincts where you don't find a precinct captain.
No. You barely find the precinct.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so, typically that's on a volunteer basis, something like that. So you do resolutions, you do a straw poll. The straw poll has to stay open for 10 minutes.
Yes.
Ballots will be counted and the results will be announced there. Now, you're going to have 3 this year.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a governor one and 2 Senate ones. And there has to be 2 people who look at the ballots.
Yeah.
And that voting has to stay open for 10 minutes. Then you elect people to your BPOU convention. Every precinct will be assigned a number of delegates and a number of alternate delegates. I remember in my old Crystal precinct, I want to say we had 5 delegates and 5 alternates. Okay. I want to say. I could be off by 1, but pretty certain that that's where we were. And we actually got about 8 people to volunteer to run for delegate, which would have created a vote, but 3 of them decided to be alternates and not cause a vote to happen.
Okay.
So if you have more people wanting to be a delegate than you have slots, you actually have to vote on who should be the delegates in that particular precinct.
Right.
Unless you have people to volunteer to be alternates. And alternates, I know that in my precinct, I'm thinking 2012, I know a couple of them got seated at the BPOU convention because not everybody showed up. So that could happen too.
Yeah.
So, So you may have that happen. So, but delegates, with their role, delegate is a 2-year commitment. And sometimes this, if you want to be a delegate to support your guy or your gal, you have to keep in the back of your mind that that's not your only role as a delegate, is to go support who you want for president or governor. You have a role in your local BPOU, which is endorsing candidates for state legislature, which ideally would happen at a BPOU convention, but it doesn't have to.
Right.
You actually have till like mid-May or late May to you can call another convention to do that. You also move on to the congressional district, which endorses a candidate to run for Congress. And then, of course, the state, which you elect at your BPOU convention. And I guess CD would be part of that, too. That go on to the state convention to endorse statewide candidates as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a long month to month to month. You'll pay a lot of money in going to conventions and things like that, which, is part of what I don't like. Some people don't have the means to go travel to Duluth, where the Republican one is this year.
Yeah.
And the price keeps going up and up and up. It'll probably be $100 to go this year, which is ridiculous. The first time I ever went to one, it was $40 in 2008.
Yeah.
When I went in 2014, which was down in Rochester, it was $75. And then it was $60 just to go to State Central in Duluth in 2016, which was my last task for SD45 that I ever did, was be a State Central delegate at the 2016 convention.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's a big time. These are typically held on Saturdays. They don't have to be.
No.
Your CD one will be.
Yeah.
But your BPOU one can be. I've seen them on Thursday nights. I've seen them on. That's more in the odd years, but where you elect officers.
Right.
And that's another thing you do as a delegate is elect officers, which typically is in the off year, unless there's redistricting, which we won't have till 2022, till that election.
Right.
So that's another task done. That if you want to be a delegate, part of that is electing officers, and that's the people who are running the party in your local BPOU.
Yeah. So, and that's important because those are the people that, will help with the they don't run the election or the campaigns for the candidates, but they do help.
Well, they do the organizing. They do
organizing around events,
getting out the vote. They manage the treasury. They appoint committees to do certain things. So, which be resolutions committee. It would be candidate, whatever committee that interviews candidates. I don't remember what we used to call that.
Yeah.
I remember you used to be on it, and I don't remember what the hell it was. but
Yeah. I was on the rules committee.
Yeah, that too. I remember being on that too, catching all the little silly things that we would do. So that was those are big roles, and the chair has a bigger role. Vice chairs usually have a role given to them, or they can sort of be like you and me and take it in whatever direction they want. So, there's, but again, the big thing about, that's kind of what you do at a caucus. I think the big thing is the first time I ever convened in 2008, I honestly thought I was the only Republican in my entire precinct.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just... It was 2008, so it wasn't the greatest year. Mm-hmm. And we had a ton of people show up, and I was blown away by it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you only live a block away?
Yeah, they come out of the woodwork.
Yeah. I know what house yours is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's that kind of thing. So, so just getting to meet, even if it's 10 people who show up, getting to meet and getting to know them, and not everybody's a self-starter. You may have to. I think you want to talk about missed opportunity. I want to get into that because the missed opportunities at a caucus are when you see that young, enthusiastic person who has talent.
Yep.
And you don't harness that and communicate with that person and get that person doing something. Because a lot of people have opinions, they have passions, they don't know where to go with it. And you got to be somebody. If you're a mover and shaker in a party like you and I are, and at a BPOU level used to be, you got to identify those people. You can't let those people go.
Yeah.
I mean, you know who I'm talking about people that we've seen that we have to put these people somewhere.
Right.
And find a role for them no matter what. And it may not be as a candidate.
No.
And that's the other thing, too. Relax on the candidate stuff. Maybe that person could be a candidate in the future, but you've got to get them somewhere, whether that's on a commission, whether that's volunteering on a campaign, whether that's writing. They need an outlet for that passion.
Right. I mean, there are some people that are ready, but there are people that aren't. And like we talk about, you don't want to take somebody that's green and put them in a role to run for state senate. At the same time, if somebody's not ready, you don't want to push them to be a candidate even at the city council level. And it might not be their forte. It might not be what they're ever really supposed to do, and that's why you have this whole process. I mean, you want to talk about the combine a little bit. Well, the combine, as anyone who follows football, they have a whole series of they take and send scouts, and they watch them while they're in college. They look at stats, all of this. They look at film, and then they have a day, a weekend or whatever, at the combine, which all these hopefuls come out and they go and they run and they jump and they throw and they catch, and they really have their skills tested out. And then they get a rating coming out of there. Different scouts are looking for different things, and they kind of line up their prospects coming out of the combine and into the draft. Mm-hmm. And this whole process is kind of like that, where you're looking at people as a scout. If you're working in a BPOU and you say, oh, this person is really good at organizing, this person is really friendly and works well with others, this person, is this, or this person is that, and it allows you to assess the talent in the room. If you're a caucus convener, especially, but as in leadership of the BPOUs, you go through the convention process, you're able to kind of track with what's happening, and you can get people involved where they're going to be effective. So it's this whole scouting process and getting people plugged in where they need to be, versus just waiting for people to come to you.
Yeah, and they're not gonna. I mean, you will have a handful of people who will come to you, but for the most part, you're going to have to go to them. And here's the kicker, okay? How many people showed up at Caucus the last time in 2000? Like I said, I think it was like 1,500. When are you ever going to have that many like-minded people in a building again? I've been to state conventions where we didn't have 1,500 delegates there.
Right.
So, I mean, or 1,500 people on the floor voting. So, I mean, you'll have that opportunity again in 4 years.
Right.
So you either take advantage of it or you're not going to get it again.
That's true. And some of those people are not guaranteed to come back to the next caucus.
Right. Or might move or whatever. So, maybe they won't move if they were invested in their community with activism. That's another thing to think about too, that maybe that won't happen. I just think it is the biggest missed opportunity out there. Yeah. And it's really a missed opportunity, I think, for people who aren't Democrats and Republicans. Because to me, you and I have talked about third parties and how they need to focus on the local first.
Yeah.
Well, where are you going to get a group of people to show up, even if it's only 30 people, 40, 50 people?
Yeah.
Where are you going to get them to show up if it's not for a caucus?
Yeah, you're not. I mean,
especially a third party. You're not going to have a primary.
No.
You're not going to have a convention, probably. You might.
Right.
But you need to have that. And there's so many missed opportunities with that because they're all looking at the big races. And we've seen third parties emerge and disappear, whether that's the 90s where you had Ross Perot and then you had Jesse Ventura here in Minnesota. But where was that party running mayors and school board members and county commissioners?
Yeah.
They could have sustained that. They had the opportunity to do that had they focused on the grassroots first. But they didn't.
Yeah.
They won one race with one famous guy.
Right.
And that was basically that was the peak of the movement.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with libertarians too. I mean, Gary Johnson got, 4 million votes?
Yeah.
I mean, he quadrupled his total from 2000. Now, if I were Gary Johnson, I would want to clone myself, I mean, I would. I'd want to clone myself 100 times in every state.
Right.
And have them run for something. And I think there's some that get that and some that don't. But when you're the Libertarian Party and you're running candidates for, Attorney General or State Auditor, where most people can't tell you who that person is right now, your movement's going nowhere. It has to. It has to start low, and the demand has to keep increasing. Same thing with the Greenies. I mean, you've got to. Their problem is they keep self-identifying, and they shouldn't do that. They should run nonpartisan, and they don't do that often. They run as flaming Greens.
Yeah,
but it's where you can get your ideas in without a label on your head.
Right.
And they're not really doing that either. So they can get their 1%, their 0.5%, and get it the next time. But caucus is where they have to start and build out. And I don't know what they do. I really don't. But it's for them in particular. It's a huge missed opportunity if they're not doing it.
Right.
Constitution Party, same thing. I mean, I don't really know what they do either. No offense, because I love the Constitution, so I'm not gonna dump on that. But
right. Well, you're just saying you've never been to one of their caucuses. You don't know how it works,
and I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's broken up by Senate district or what it is. Also, I would add that. Do they have CD conventions? Do they have, I mean, they're going to have to break that down to be successful.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Not happening as far as I know.
No, not as far as I know either, and I think that they're also missing this huge opportunity to organize at the local level when we have talked about that you have to shore up the local level, and that starts at the precinct, and and it works its way into city councils and stuff. But if you know your neighbors, when you find out that there's an opening on the planning commission in Ward 2, hey, I know Bill, he's in Ward 2, he'd be great on the planning commission,
Right, but if you're not seeking that out, you won't do it.
Right. Exactly.
You and I kind of did that when we were at SD45.
Yeah.
We sought out people we won't name names, but I mean, we cornered people up. We used every tactic in the book.
True.
You and I'd like to say we were good salesmen, but I think we were more like giving people the Johnson treatment.
Yeah.
But it was, But it was, I know for me, I got excited and inspired when I met somebody that I just thought to myself, boy, we're going to do something with you.
Yeah.
We're going to, you have no idea how much your life's going to change in the next year or two. Some of them didn't, so it was cool to go through that. And I just hope that every BPOU takes that and thinks about doing that, because there's really no other way to, especially if you're in an area where maybe the political winds are not to your liking. You aren't going to change it from the top down, and at least not in the long run. You might win one election, that happens, but to change it, really change people's minds, it's like all revolutions come from within.
Right.
And, the Washington, D.C. and St. Paul will be the last two places a revolution ever happens.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
Well, what else can we say? Now, we should mention something about the convention system here. I mean, about going up to convention and endorsing candidates and maybe a little bit more of what, if you're thinking about being a delegate, maybe giving you a little bit more of what you're in for.
Right.
We mentioned attending all these conventions, but there's a great responsibility that comes with being a delegate.
Yeah, exactly. And you get elected to be a delegate or an alternate, and there's a lot of people that they'll go in the even years and they'll skip in the odd years, or they'll go on the presidential years again, and even in the non-presidential years, it's not quite as much, although it's to a lesser degree, because usually the people that are involved at that level to be delegates and alternates are looking to support a certain, gubernatorial candidate or whoever, and so you've got that.
Or Senate candidate or congressional candidate, they're all there.
But it's your job, not only to endorse a candidate, it's also your job to decide on the rules that govern the party at your level, the local party. It's also your job to select the leadership of the local party. And so there's a lot of other things that go into that as well.
Yeah, and I would say, too, it happens the same at the CD level.
Yeah.
That if you go, when you get to be a delegate to the BPOU convention, you can run to be a delegate at the CD and state level.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Right.
But you can. And there's another set of responsibilities on with that. There's CD leadership, just the way there is in a BPOU.
Yeah.
State Central is something separate. That's chair of the party and so on. That's different.
Yeah.
But, and they don't just, if you're talking about delegates to the state, they don't just elect who's going to be the governor candidate. It's Senate, it's judges, it's state auditor, it's attorney general, it's secretary of state. There's a whole boatload of offices that you are there to and resolutions to vote on. The party may propose some changes. I know one year, I can't recall what year this was. I think it was the one in St. Cloud, where there were some restructuring things to the party that were proposed. Some of them passed, some of them didn't. I didn't quite understand them all. I remember I didn't vote on a couple of them because I wasn't quite sure.
Right.
But there's a lot that goes into being a CD and state delegate like that. I mean, you really have to be, it's not a position to be hoofing it.
Right.
And like I said, the Republican conventions in Duluth, the first weekend in June, guarantee you that'll be a couple $100 weekend if you're going to go up there and stay up there for the weekend to do that convention.
Right.
So it's a money commitment too.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's parts of that I don't like. I mean, I don't really care for how we endorse people. I think that's got its pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
That a group of, 100 people can endorse a CD candidate. It just kind of sounds wrong to me. But, I hate an August primary. I just can't stand that. It's way too late in the game. You can't have a primary that late. And then have a 10-week general election. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's just a disservice to everybody. So there's a lot of things that could change.
Yeah.
I think the endorsement process works very well at the BPOU level. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much I like it going. I don't know that it's produced the best candidates. I do have my worries about a straight primary.
Yeah.
I mean, I worry that the money men are going to control everything, and we don't seem to get much voter participation in that either.
No.
And it's unfortunately. I mean, I if we had 50% turnout, I'd have a much different opinion of it.
Now, I'm also going to say that at the local level, I think it's important to have primaries. I think when
you're talking about like city council
and stuff,
the nonpartisan races,
exactly. Where you don't have 50 people running for one seat,
right? I think it's important too. I think you have to have primaries because I think that the primaries narrow the field down. I think it's important to do that. I think you get a better examination of the candidates.
Right.
If you start campaigning in May, and even though I don't like an August primary for state races, for local races it's a little different because if you start the process in May, say you have 4 people who want to run for one seat, you go down from 4 to 2 and then down from 2 to 1. I think it's important because I think everybody gets vetted better. And I don't want a candidate winning with 29% of the vote.
Right.
I don't. So I think it's important to have that too. So I definitely support them at the local level. And there's going to be some changes that come.
Yeah.
At the state level, it's inevitable.
It is.
We've already moved toward a presidential primary. I don't understand how we're going to do that separate from caucus. I don't really get that. I assume it's the end of the straw poll, which I think is problematic because I don't think you're going to see his caucus as full as maybe you once did.
Right.
So that may be a negative. Although the primary may be a better sample of vote of a party.
Right.
So I don't know what to do there, but thank God I'm not involved in that debate. I'd probably end up killing somebody. So but I mean, a straight primary worries me. Never getting together and caucusing, I think, is a mistake.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that there's a happy medium. I don't know where that exists.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if there is a happy medium. There is an issue, I think, as well when you're mixing them together. You have one person that goes through, gets the endorsement, and then you have another person that just decides to take it to a primary. And so you've got this mixture of, well, this is who the party and the people that we elected in the party to endorse somebody feel is the best person, and then, well, this person wants to go around and just go around the process, and
we see that everywhere. We saw that Mark Dayton did that.
Yeah.
When, remember, it was the lady who was the Speaker of the House. I can't remember her name.
Margaret Kelleher.
Yeah, who got the endorsement, but she lost the prize. And then Matt Antenza was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Neither one of them even went to the DFL, convention, and we saw that in the Republican Party with Kurt Zellers and with Scott Honor, who then he had Marty Seifert, who was doing both.
Yeah,
who went for the endorsement, lost, and then went. So I don't understand. If we're going to have a primary, then the endorsement becomes. I think there's ways to improve the endorsement too, and how we do that. I mean, I'll give you an example. I remember when I was down. Were you down in Rochester in 2014? I remember you being there.
I don't think so.
But I remember we had the Senate. It was Mike McFadden, Julianne Ortman, and Chris Dahlberg, and there was somebody else.
I was at that one, yeah.
You were at that one.
Wait, that was the St. Cloud one.
No, that was Kurt Bills and.
I was at the Rochester one then, yeah.
No, wait a minute. Yeah. Which one are you talking about?
I was at the Rochester one.
So you were at the McFadden, Ortman. Okay. Yeah. Remember the first ballot? Remember what the percentages were?
No.
It was something like 27 to 25 to 23 to 21.
Okay.
I can't remember who the fourth candidate was. Doesn't matter.
Right.
So it was like, okay, nobody's going to get to, then there was, after the third ballot, finally somebody dropped out. Then so-and-so got together with so-and-so. And, I mean, it became the person, I'll say it's Mike McFadden, who started with 27%, somehow ended up at 60% by the next afternoon. But that really wasn't representative of the room.
Right.
And it was kind of like, well, does that endorsement mean a damn thing, really?
Yeah, I don't know, and that's why it's important to be involved all the way through the process. I don't know. What is the best way? I don't know. Like you say, I think there are issues both ways. But, I mean, that's neither here nor there. I mean, when you're talking about, there are issues, do you go to... There are a lot of people that are pushing for a straight primary. There are a lot of people that want to keep the convention and caucus process. I think that it is so important that we keep the caucus process, if for no other reason than it is the most important way that we find our talent as...
I agree 100%. Yeah. I think that the day we lose caucus, you and I are going to lose our issue, which is local government.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that because you could lose the BPOU conventions with it.
Yeah.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know how that would be restructured without a caucus.
Yeah.
Who would the delegates be if there's no caucus?
Right.
And then, we're talking to who elects the party if there's no... The same time, I'm lukewarm on the idea that it brings out the best candidates for us.
Right.
Maybe doing a convention for statewide candidates is not the right way to go. Maybe it's the right way to go for local candidates.
Yeah.
Or even state representative candidates. And maybe statewide candidates need to be something different. I don't know. But it's the inside BS that it's probably not the fun part of politics, but my whole spiel is this: that you've got to attend your caucus. I mean, you've got to go. You've got to get with like-minded people. There will not be a night, my friends, where you will not find more like-minded people around you.
Yeah.
Even if you have 10 people in the room, that's 9 more than you knew before you got there.
That's right.
So get to your caucus for no other reason, just to meet local people who think like you. Just to meet, and you may find that there's somebody running for city council that you didn't know about.
Yeah.
You might find a great state rep candidate that you wouldn't have met.
Right.
So there's a lot of different reasons to go.
There are.
But don't vote in a straw poll and then leave.
No.
That's a disservice to your party. It's a disservice. It's a slap in the face to anybody there. You can take an hour out of your life once every 2 years to do this.
Yeah.
So.
But I would take it a step further. I mean, I think taking more than just that hour is important as well. I mean, you look at getting involved after caucus, and what is it if you're on a planning commission? You're serving 3 hours a month, or whatever it is. I think that by getting involved, I'm sorry, but I think that is the only way that you change things, and like you said, don't go just for a straw poll, go because that's the thing. I mean, we form a lot of these groups, or we get online and we're involved in politics because we complain about the other side. No, I'm sorry. The other side wins because they're organized and they're actually involved in the day-to-day running and organizing of political campaigns and activism. It's not just about complaining in groups and complaining online and talking a good game. They do things, and that's what you have to do.
Focus on winning elections, not arguments.
Yes.
Dr. Phil always says, you sound like you'd rather win an argument. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. Pretty good?
Yeah.
Well, that's okay.
That's pretty good.
I got more hair than him. I got more
you
hair.
Do.
It's
good.
starting to recede, but I got, So get your butts there February 6th. I want to see everybody listening there February 6th, or I'm going to come hunt you down.
Oh, boy.
I don't even know who the hell you are, but I'm going to hunt you down anyway.
Well,
and here's another thing, too. I just want to mention one last thing, Jay, and we'll wrap it up.
Go ahead.
For you people caucus conveners out there, who I'm sure go to some sort of convener training in January. I mean, I went through that even when I was being a convener for the 5th time. I still went and did that, just because I attend everything. You're the ones you are the eyes and ears of your BPOU at that precinct.
Yeah.
And you need to really take an eye to who's passionate and who's, who you think can be somebody. And I would encourage BPOUs to have lists of commission openings, a list of local elections that are up this year. Mm-hmm. Like for Crystal, you've got Ward 1, Ward 2, Section 2. Mm-hmm. New Hope, you got the 2 council seats. Robbinsdale, you got the 2 council seats.
Yeah.
So people see that, and they see how many spots that you could fill with like-minded folks. And, hey, look, this is Ward whatever in New Hope or whatever. There's 3 spots on the planning commission here. Yeah. And I see you're that caucus convener. You see somebody who's articulate, passionate. You grab them and you try to find a job, find a role for them. If it doesn't have to be inside the BPOU, it can be somewhere else. But you conveners and you people organizing have got to make identifying people as a top priority. Not getting done quickly, not getting the straw poll results downstairs as quick as possible.
Right.
That can wait.
Absolutely.
No, the ballots aren't going anywhere. But identifying people has to be number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
No question.
Absolutely.
There's my rant to end the show.
Well, that's perfect. So when you go to caucus this year and we want to hear from you. What was your experience? How did your BPOU run it? How did your precinct run it? How responsive were they? Tell us, we would love to hear your stories, and if we got any good ones, maybe we'll talk about them. as always. Otherwise, if there are other things that you want to let us know about, we'll write about it. We'll talk about it on the podcast. We want to hear all those local issues because that's how we all learn from each other. And, we're out there. You can email us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Otherwise, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're everywhere. So make sure that you find us. This podcast, if you haven't found it yet on your smartphone, you can do that. iTunes Store, on Spotify, at Google Play Store. Just type in Community Solutions. We're right there. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate the fact that you listen to us and have us out to speak to your groups and all of that. We love it. And we look forward to doing it a lot in 2018. So with that, we love you, Minnesota. And it's your turn to get to work.
Let me